Shalom everyone, welcome to our weekly study on the Parsha or portion of the Torah, weekly portion of the Torah. Uh, the portion that we're going to be studying today is called Shelach, and this portion is found in the book Bamidbar, book of Numbers, and it's going to be on chapter 13 verse 1 and ends in chapter 15 verse 41. So this, to give a little background of what this Parsha talks all about, the main theme in the Parsha is basically Moshe sending spies to the land of Canaan, and he sends spies representing each of the tribes to the land of Canaan, and then when they return, they 40 days later, which we're going to be talking about the meaning of the number 40, the significance in Kabbalah. They bring grapes, figs, and a whole bunch of other things from the land, and basically they come back, from a land that was bountiful. It was a good land. But 10 of the spies, they say that there are giants in that land and they basically cannot overpower those giants. And only two people, Caleb and Joshua, insist that the land can be conquered. And that's basically the main thing. Also, there's another theme which is very important as well, is that the people start complaining again and to Moshe, and they say to Moshe basically that they much rather go back to Egypt. So the Creator at this moment decrees that Israel entry into the land is going to be delayed for 40 years, and we're going to talk about why 40 years, what kind of corrections they needed to do for 40 years in order to go to the land of Canaan and make it into Eretz Israel. So basically during that time an entire generation will die and a new generation will be able to go to the land of Canaan. There's also mention of two nations that live in that land, and is the Amalekites and the Canaanites. And we're not gonna put too much attention into that part of the portion, but because we're gonna concentrate mostly on the 10 spies and what that means for us as Kabbalists, and also to work internally ourselves in our studies of the Parsha. There's also some laws that are given in this Parsha, and is the laws of what is called menachot, which is the meal, wine, and oil offerings, and also the mitzvah to concentrate a portion of the challah, of the dog of the bread, and this is, when making bread, there's a tradition in Judaism that comes from this commandment to take a portion of the dog that we're using for the challah, and we put that dog, on the side. Also, there's an interesting passage which is very confusing for some people. There's a man that violates the Shabbat and start gathering sticks, and that person is put to death. And when you read that passage, you're gonna think, wow, the law was really, awful during that day, gathering sticks, and he got killed basically, or put to death. We're going to talk about that as well. What is the real meaning behind it, and why it shouldn't be taken literally, okay? And also there's the commandment of putting the tzitzis, the fringes that are in the four corners of Jewish or Israelite person, and that's basically to remind them of the commandments and remind them of that they're over, or they have over them basically the divine presence of God, and then they should remember all the time that they need to fulfill the commandments or the mitzvot. In the case of Kabbalists, the tzitzit reminds them of the mitzvot, and the mitzvot are symbols for the work that needs to be done or the corrections that need to be done internally. So let's start with the parsha itself, and we're gonna be talking about the meaning of these verses according to the Ramchal, and also I think I have the book here. It's I'm using Pituchei Chotan, which is written by Rabbi Yaakov Abu Hatzeira. Pretty good book if anybody want to get it. I think it's Art Scroll. Yeah, Art Scroll sells it, and it has Kabbalistic insights on the Parsha as well. Very, very nice. Very nice book. Okay, but I'm using mostly the Ramchal. Okay, so the first thing that we need to understand is Shelach. What does the word Shelach means? Shelach means for yourself. And in the Parsha, it starts by saying, Veidaber Adonai el Moshe laomer Shelach lecha anashim veteru et eretz Canaan asher ani naten lebnei Israel. So, and Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, send for you men who shall spy out the land of Canaan, a land I will give to the sons of Israel. And the Parsha main theme is the following. It talks about these 10 spies that were not giving a good report of the land that they were looking at. They were basically afraid. They were not seeing a hopeful result of their efforts. And what is that land? Why it is called Canaan and it's not called Israel? Because at that moment, in that land, the land is in a lower level. Canaan is in a lower level. When the Bnei Israel go to the land, when they start living in the land and the land is divided into the tribes, the land basically is raised to a higher level, on a spiritual level, and then it can be called Israel. So by these spies not saying anything good about the land, they were talking about something that the Kabbalists always give this or basically say that this land alludes to the Shekhinah. So they were basically saying that there's no way for the Israelites to achieve a level of the Atzilut in Asiyah. Right? So this is what we're gonna Ramchal says that the reason after they came back with a bad report for the land, the reason the Creator gave them 40 years basically to purge a whole generation was in order to purge the levels of Tumah, 4 levels of Tumah, and those 4 levels of Tumah in themselves have also 10 levels. So it's basically 4 levels of impurity that have, if you might call it, a tree of life of impurity in them. And those 4 levels are Nachash, Seraph, Akrav, and Simaon. And like I said, these are subdivided into 10 sub-levels, each of them with their dark tree of life, if you want to say. Nachash, you heard it or you have actually read about it in the book of Genesis. It means serpent. Seraph are fiery serpents, so it's basically venomous serpents. Akrav are scorpions. And Simaon is like thirst, being thirsty, a lack of water. And what's the meaning of Nachash? Nachash, serpent, is a force that divides. is the force that divided Adam and Eve. Is the force that divided Adam from a relationship with the Creator. Seraph is basically poison. Poison means the bad. I would say, it's called like the lashon hara, which is poison coming from the mouth, and that's the symbolism of the seraph. Poisonous snakes, poison from the mouth. The crab, scorpion. The meaning of scorpions basically betrayal. So if you really now are paying attention, what's happening inside the camps of the Israelites is that they have division, they have an issue with lashon hara, which is the evil tongue, and also they are betraying each other. And then Simaon, thirst. Thirst is not the lack of water. It's just that lack of water has the meaning of mercy, is chesed, hasidim. So the lack of water, the thirst, means lack of mercy, lack of love for each other. So these are the 4 levels of tumah that need to be purged during 40 years. So for each year, a level of tumah needed to be purified, and that's the meaning of a whole generation. So Shelach lecha means basically to send for yourself. So send for yourself means basically the Creator telling Moshe, send this man, by yourself. It's not the Creator sending this man. This is a work that needs to be done from a lower level. Okay, so this is what's happening, and the meaning of Shelach lecha, Shelach for yourself. And they're going to be sent according to their father's tribe and tribal leaders, according to the word Hashem, all of them of distinction, heads of Bnei Israel. So in something that the Kabbalists talk about is that the Yetzer Hara was always in the midst of the camp of the Bnei Israel, and he tried really hard to basically divide the nation. You will have, in the Mount of Sinai, while Moshe was in the mountain at the foot of Mount Sinai, we have this rebellion, spiritual rebellion, in which they created a golden calf, and that was the Yetzer Hara, trying to get into the camp and try to divide the nation. Then after that, we have the people complaining about they don't have food or anything like that. Then we have Miriam and Aharon basically using lashon hara against Moshe. And now once again we're gonna see basically what we call negative words against the land that the Creator promised to give the Bnei Israel. And all this, in a deeper level, is connected to what happened in the Garden of Eden, when Chava, Eve, ate or was tricked by the serpent, by the Nachash, to eat from the tree of life. It has to do with that. I'm not gonna go deeper into that because that will be a whole different class. That has to do with the tree of good and evil. But just think that everything that is happening right now with the Bnei Israel is a system that is created in order to correct what happened in the Garden of Eden and bring the human race back to a relationship with the Creator. Okay? So when Moshe sent for these leaders or representatives of the tribe that are going to be spying the land, he sends a person that was very close to him called Yehoshua. At that time, he was called Hoshea or Joshua. But then Moshe added a Yod to his name, and it's Yehoshua. And the reason that that Yod was added is because the Yod and the Hey, when they're together in the name Yehoshua, represents high realms into which the Tumah, this impurity, these dark forces, cannot grasp. Basically, what Moshe was intending by changing the name is to make sure that there's an extra protection for Yehoshua, okay, or Joshua. So in chapter 13, verse 17 says, Vayomer Elohim Aluze Vanegev. To protect the spies from the negative forces, and if you have been with us, studying the Parsha since we started, when the camps were set up around the tabernacle, we talk about how what is called the north is always a negative side, in the sense that all the negative forces go through there, enter through there, and that's the reason some of the tribes needed to be on that side in order to be barriers so the forces of Tumah, the forces of impurity, could not enter. And by Moshe basically sending the spies through basically the Negev, which is the south, he's basically sending them through the side of mercy, Chesed, instead of the side of Geburah, which is judgment. He sent them through the side of mercy to help them with their mission, so their mission, can be more fruitful. And this is where we're gonna see that this alu ze, ascend here, the word ascend here, the word ze or here, appears in this verse, and has the numerical value of 12. Zayin is 7 and Hey is 5. 7 plus 5 is 12. And this alludes to the idea of unity. How many people are being sent to spy the land? 12 people. So this is the whole idea of the code when it says alu se. Alu basically means ascend. So if we translate that alu ze into the numbers, ascending 12 people, representatives of the Bnei Israel, ascending them through the side of Chesed. Okay, so the whole point was that the whole group of spies was supposed to be as one person, as one heart, if you will, and that they were supposed to be doing this job without all the issues that was happening internally with the Bnei Israel. Okay, and how do we know that these people were supposed to be as one body, as one heart, and do this job according to what their mission and their purpose was supposed to be? That's when I'm gonna go now to the book of Rabbi Yaakov Abuhatzeira, because he explained here this in a very interesting way. He explained that each of the tribes were a representative of a part of a body. So each of the tribes represent a part of the whole body. So the first thing we need to remember is that the spies are gonna spy the land of Canaan, and the land of Canaan is the Shekhinah. Okay, refers to the Shekhinah. So if they're together as one man, as one heart, they can cleave to this Shekhinah. If they cleave to this Shekhinah, they will actually see that this is attainable, that there be, a possibility of holiness for this land, and also for the children of Israel to achieve spirituality in that land. Okay. So the first thing that we're gonna see is that we start talking about the different tribes and who was representing that tribe. And it says, these are the names for the tribe of Reuben, Shammua, son of Zakur. And the Rabbi Yaakov says here that this hints to the eyes. But why do we know that this hints that this is the eyes? Because of the name Reuben. Because the name Reuben is related to the word sight. So Reuben is related to Raya, which is sight. So that's why we know that this tribe represents the eyes. Right? From the tribe of Shimon, Shaphat, son of Hori, and according to Rabbi Yaakov, this refers to the ears. And also, it says it alludes to freedom. Freedom of what? Freedom of idolatry and all these negative or foreign thoughts that a person should not have, and it's a secret of the Shema. That's why it's because Hori alludes to the Torah, which is called Herut, which is freedom. Okay, and he says that's the reason, it is freedom. And the reason it is called, or it is a symbolism or alludes to the ears, is because the tribe of Shimon refers to listening. Shema, Shimon, it has the same root. For the tribe of Yehuda, Caleb, son of Yefuneh. So for Yehuda, it signifies or alludes as mission, which is done through the mouth. So this is through the mouth. Yehuda. Also, the name Yehuda has to do with Hodu. Hodu means like praises. So that's done with the mouth. And something very interesting is that Caleb is an acronym for Kahash, Leitzanut, Bedaot, falsehood, levity, and lies. And the name Yefuneh implies clearing the way. So what Rabbi Yaakov said that is that it basically, the name Caleb, it's a person that is getting rid of all these falsehood, levity, and lies. And from the tribe of Yehuda, the mouth. Okay. From the tribe of Issachar, Igal, son of Joseph. And it says that this refers to the lips. And why it refers to the lips? Issachar has a numerical value of 830, which is the same as Siftaim, which is lips. So that's why this tribe alludes to the lips. Also, the tribe of Ephraim, you're gonna see that Ephraim alludes to the brit, to the covenant, to the sexual organ. And at the same time, you need to understand that brit also means shalom, the brit shalom, the covenant of peace. So the tribe of Ephraim, we know they're descendants of Joseph, so that's the reason it is given the symbol of the brit. Because Joseph, when you look at the tree of life, tree of life, is represents the Yesod in the tree of life, and Yesod is basically that connection, or that which connects or transmit the light of Chokmah, or the upper light, together with all Hasidim, to the lower realm, which is Malchut, and is referred basically as the Brit. For the tribe of Ephraim, it's related to the word Pru, which means be fruitful, referring to the Brit, to the sexual organ. And if you read the book of Genesis, it says basically there the first commandment is to multiply, be fruitful and multiply. Puru. The tribe of Binyamin, Palti, son of Raphu. And basically say that Binyamin alludes to the hands, and the reason is because Binyamin contains the word Yamin, which means right side, and it refers to the Tzedakah, which is giving. So therefore, that's why it has to do with the hands. The tribe of Zebulun, Gadiel, son of Sodi, this verse alludes to the left hand, which is where the tefillin is it's put. And it says here that the name Zabulon, when it's spelled out, when each letter is spelled out, and the added letter to it have the numerical value of 886, which is the same one as Yad Keha, which means weak hand, and when that is spelled in full, adding 2 to each for each of the word, it has a numerical value of 886. Okay, so it alludes to weak hand, basically the left hand, okay, where the tefillin is placed, and it's weak because being the left side of Geburah. Okay, from the tribe of Joseph, for the tribe of Manasseh, Gadin, son of Shushi. And this alludes to the heart. Basically, it's saying here that I'm reading, give me a minute, and then it's saying here that the name Joseph, when it's spelled full, has the final letters Doha, which adding 1 for the word itself has the numerical value of 32. 32 is the numerical value of the word lev, which is heart. And also the name Joseph implies increasing, multiplication, right? If you remember, I mentioned before in the commandment, the first commandment given in Genesis, which is be fruitful and multiply. There's an allusion here, Manasseh being of this multiplication, while Ephraim is about being fruitful. So these two tribes, because they come from Joseph, and Joseph represents Yesod, they have to do with the heart and also the covenant. Okay, so now the next tribe that we have is the tribe of Dan, and the person or the spy was Amiel son of Gemali, and it said that this name alludes to the forehead, and it says that it alludes to the forehead because the word Ami means with me. That's Amiel, the name of Amiel. Ami means with me, and El is the name of Hashem. And also, when the person feels the presence of Hashem, we basically, what we do is as human beings, right? We think, we're thinking basically. When it says forehead, it's basically more like the mochin, the brains, and Hashem is with me basically means, that it's a mark that we need to have in our forehead. So We have already the tefillin in our left hand, and this time we're talking about the head tefillin symbolically, right? In this mention of this name, and that's the reason that we need to make sure that those areas, the negative area, basically the Yetzer Hara, or the evil inclination in us, and our thoughts are concentrated in the Creator. So that's why this name, Amiel, uh, the Creator is with me, El is with me. It's implied in his name. From the tribe of Asher, Setur, son of Mikael, and this allude to the head, basically to the skull. A person who fears Hashem must be humble and subdued and walk with his head bowed. So Asher, and the reason it says, that it belongs to the head, to the skull, is because Asher, the letters of the name Asher can be rearranged and they will form the word Rosh. Rosh means head. And he gives more about the other meanings, but because of our time, I make sure I cover the most important, which is the symbolism of each tribe. For the tribe of Naphtali, Nachbi, son of Vafsi. The names refer to the legs. The person's main occupation is sitting to learn Torah and to pray. And when it says, the name refers to the name of the tribe Naphtali refers to the leg. The numerical value of Naphtali is 570, and the word Tule, Shtei Regalim, are spelled in full. The added letters give you the same numerical value, 570. So that's why it says that this tribe symbolizes or alludes to the legs. And for the tribe of Gad, Gewel, son of Machi. So it says that it refers to the nose, and the reason is that the words used in Hebrew for tribe of Gad, which is Matech Gad, you add 2 for each word, so basically add 1 number for each, or 1 digit for each of the words. You have the numerical value 63, which is the same value as the word Hotem, which is nose. And then it says, that these are the names of the men whom Moshe sent to spy the land. And Moshe called Hoshea, son of Nun, Yehoshua. And Moshe called Hoshea, son of Nun, Yehoshua. So it says here that the main thing is that a person must protect the brit, the covenant. For the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea, son of Nun, refers to the brit. Therefore, it is regarding this. It is regarding about this organ, the sexual organ, that Moshe specifically prayed for, since it must be guarded so carefully. And what Moshe did, he added a yod to the name Hoshea, and now is Yehoshua, which we mentioned before in it. And then says Moshe sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, and he said to them, ascend here in the south and climb the mountain. Basically what we talked before was, when he said, Aluze, means basically as one, 12 tribes as one will be elevated through the path of Chesed, which is the south. Okay, and that's the meaning of basically the tribes, and what Rabbi Yaakov Abu Hatzeira in his book Pituchei Chotam says that each of these tribes actually mean. Okay, so back to the Ramchal and his commentaries on the Parsha, which is what we're using to learn about the Parsha and more in depth. So the spies, there's a part in here in which it mentions the following. It says, Amalek dwells in the area of the south. The Hittite, Jebusite, and Amorite dwell in the mountain, and the Canaanite dwell by the sea. And Amalek is in Kabbalah and also in Judaism, Amalek is a force. It's a force of doubt. It's a force that makes you doubt. So that force is inherent in the spies, right? As they when they come back and everything, because they see when you see in the parsha that it mentions Amalek, it mentions the Amorite and the Canaanite. These are forces that exist in the land of Canaan, and basically are forces that need to be corrected. And when the Israelites, let's talk about internal correction, right? We need to ascend. We need to cleave to something or this force that is something that is very, very potent and powerful, and that is our collective soul, the Shekhinah. And the Shekhinah itself is the collective soul of Israel, right? So in order for us to achieve that level of Israel, which is Eretz Israel, we need to first be in what is called Canaan, which is a lower level of the land. So you're going to have the land of Canaan, and then the land of Israel, and in Kabbalah we even have symbolism for the Syria and Babylonia and all that, and Babylon. But right now, what you need to think is this: we are the Bnei Israel, right? Put yourself in this basically symbolic meditation, in which we are the Bnei Israel. We are supposed to spy the land to see how good this spiritual realm is. And as we are ascending, we go achieve a little bit of that level, because we're not there yet. We're not living there yet. We're just achieving. We're spying, and we see that we need to correct certain aspects. There are some barriers before we achieve that level. And those levels are called the Amalekite, the Hittite, the Jebusite, the Amorite, the Canaanite. And those levels are basically midot that we need to correct in order to achieve the higher level of spirituality. And that's what happened here. This is what they see. So when you read this portion and you see them coming back, it's only 10 of them. The symbolism of 10 is basically a whole tree of life, right? 10 Sefirot, and the 10 of them give a bad report of the land. Yet there are two of them, they don't give a bad report. They say that we can conquer this land. So we're gonna talk about that right now. So when it says that the Canaanite dwell by the sea, the word yam, okay? The word yam has a numerical value of 40, alluding to the 50 gates of understanding. I made a mistake. The word yam has a yud and a mem. The yud is 10 and the mem is 40. So what you have is the name 40 in the word yam. Yam means sea. And that alludes to the 50 gates of understanding, which is the levels of Bina, right? Reaching the level of Bina. And the 10 spies, they have tremendous fear of the great strength that the forces of impurity of Tumah, have. But however, Caleb see that there's nothing to fear, and the reason is that, remember when we talk about the Lashon Hara, about the talking, about the saying, how through talking, by tricking Chava, the serpent, by talking, made Chava commit the sin, and by talking also Chava made Adam sin. How the Bnei Israel also were complaining and also using Lashon Hara against each other through the desert, and how here now is the same thing with the land of Israel. Then Caleb comes, and Caleb represents silence. He says he silenced them. He silenced all of them. And Caleb, which is like, it means like the heart. He silenced them, but he silenced only one nation. It says he silenced the nation. It doesn't say silence the nations. So he silenced one nation. What nation is he silenced? And Caleb silenced the nation towards Moshe, and said, we shall surely go up and inherit the land, because we are surely capable. That nation is the Erev Rav. The Erev Rav is these forces of deep egoistic desires that are mixed with the Bnei Israel, which are altruistic desires. And these forces are fighting each other. You're gonna see that throughout the whole story of the Torah as we study it. And this is the Yetzer Hara, the evil side in each person that tries to all the time bring what is called Lashon Hara, which is evil tongue, evil talking, betrayal, is gonna bring division, and is gonna bring also asking for justice without mercy, basically revenge and things like that. And all that stuff is happening there. And also, as we see here, the doubt, which is a force that you're gonna see as we study, is a force that is there. Even when we celebrate Purim, we talk about that force, the force of doubting that we can achieve something spiritual, because we see those forces of Tumah stronger than we are when they're not. They're as strong as we. The strength is as strong as the strength that we're thinking about them. Basically, if we think they're 90% strong, they're gonna be 90% strong, and we're gonna be 100% weaker, because they're like that. We're feeding them with our fears. Okay, and that's what happened here. We're feeding the Amalekite, we're feeding doubt with our fears. And when Caleb silenced them in their claim by explaining that although they correctly assess the situation, nevertheless, when Hashem wishes, He can endow them with great strength and elevate the people to enable them to empower the forces of impurity of Tumah. So even though the assessment was correct, it's probably these people were really big and everything and all that, and it was going to be hard. When there's a promise, when there is something that it is basically given, you need to receive it. You need to receive it. You cannot be doubting and having fear, should I receive it or not. And remember, in Kabbalah, we don't take things, we receive things. So the Creator said, I'm gonna give them the land. I'm gonna give them the land. It doesn't say that they need to take the land. He says He's gonna give them the land. It says basically Asher Ani Naten Lebnei Israel. The land that I will give to the children of Israel. So they were fearful of receiving. And sometimes in our life, we see that there are things that are given to us by the Creator. The Creator is giving us good opportunities in certain areas of our life. And because we are afraid, we have fear, we don't take advantage of that light that the Creator is giving us. Whether that light comes in the form of spiritual advancement, spiritual knowledge, or it comes in the form of a new job, a better relationship with your other half, uh, an opportunity to change something in society, an opportunity for you to become a better person, meaning an inspiration that you receive at that moment from above, and you're afraid to express that inspiration and share with others when that might change the world. Because if we go by the butterfly effect, you might do something here that might affect millions in the future. Okay, so the Bnei Israel, when they spied the land, they saw the same thing. They saw an opportunity. They saw how great the land was and everything. But there was a but. This is a problem. These guys, that are on that land, they look like giants. We will never be able to overtake them. And they even exaggerate, like we look like ants, compared with them and all that. And that happens, inside us all the time. Sometimes we see the problems as giants, and these giants are as big as we want them to be. Sometimes they're not as big as they really are. We're the ones giving them the strength. We're the ones giving them their height and power against us, right? So Caleb's attempt to change the hearts of the people proved unsuccessful, and they responded with despair and crying. As a result, that night, the ninth, and this is very important, the 9th of Av was established as a day of crying for the Bnei Israel. And to this day, we still cry on that day of the 9th of Av. Because on that day, the first and second Beit HaMikdash temple in Jerusalem, these temples were destroyed that day. And this day is also a date that brings a lot of calamities to the Jewish nation. If you go through history, not only the Beit HaMikdash, but also decrees against the Jews, against anybody that is basically part of Israel. So the 9th of Av was marked that day as a day of basically the Bnei Israel opening the doors to the forces of Tumah to enter, the forces of doubt, the force that we are supposed to be fighting until the end of times, according to what the Creator said, that there will be war between the Creator and Amalek until the end of time. So, like I said, there's a lot more. There's also the people, or Hashem saying, that He will smite them with a plague, and because of what they did and all that, and how Moshe basically he served as this lawyer defending the people of Israel and all that. So something very interesting that the Ramchal writes in this commentary on the Parsha is that to this day we're still paying the price of what the 10 spies did with the Lashon Hara. And this is something very interesting. it says that when the golden calf was made, um, Hashem forgiveness for the sin of the golden calf, for the golden calf. Moshe invoked uh, 13 attributes of the Creator, 13 attributes of mercy. However, in this sin, which is the sin of not being or not talking really good about what they saw in the land of Canaan, not foreseeing the future that this land it's given to them already. It's just that they need to make sure that they themselves, like the move has to be, from below, not from above. Moshe, instead of like in the golden calf, invoking the 13 attributes of mercy, this time he invokes only 9 attributes, and the reason is because for the golden calf, there was no need for Moshe to invoke the 13 attributes of mercy. Although the sin arose in tremendous amount of judgment against Bnei Israel, the 9 attributes of mercy were sufficient to counteract this. Have Moshe, invoked those 13 attributes, the decree would have been completely nullified, and there would have been no need for them to sojourn the desert for 40 years. So, when the golden calf happened, Moshe spent 40 days talking to Hashem to forgive the people. And according to Ramchal, the sin of the spies were less severe, and there was no need for Moshe to invoke all 13 attributes of mercy. However, Moshe spent 40 days, invoked 13 attributes, and here Moshe invoked only 9, and the children of Israel will spend 40 days in the desert so they can purge the attributes of Tumah, which we mentioned in the beginning. And the lack of total forgiveness, and that's the reason the 9 and not 13, the lack of total forgiveness is evident from the fact that the night the spies returned and the people accepted the report of the spies instead of the reports of Yehoshua and Caleb, the night of Av is still to this day established as a night of weeping for generations. And this is a burden that the children of Israel are carrying throughout generations, because we are still correcting the sins of our fathers in the desert. And this is a way also, believe it or not, according to the Kabbalists, that as long as we are correcting that the 9 of Av, for each generation we are crying for the Beit HaMikdash of all the calamities that happen, that will mean that the Creator will not annihilate completely the Bnei Israel, because there's still work to do and they're still doing their work, meaning they're still mourning for their sins or faults that their forefathers did in the past. So let's talk about the person that was gathering stick and was put to death. What is the meaning of that? And I'm going to talk about that because a person asked me to add it to this. What is the meaning of that? Does that mean that the Creator, or at that time the children of Israel, were not merciful? Was Shabbat so important that we are allowed to kill a person simply because they're gathering sticks? So Shabbat is supposed to be a day of rest. The symbolism of Shabbat is that there's no need to divide certain things. There's no need to correct anything. Shabbat means that everything is corrected. That's why we sing the Shalom Aleichem, meaning the good angel and the bad angel go in peace. There's no strife, no war between you two, because this is Shabbat. Everything rest. We are supposed to receive this extra soul that day. When he was gathering stick, what are stick? A stick is basically a portion of a tree. And I think you already know where I'm going with this. tree of life is Shabbat. Days of the week are the tree of knowledge of good and evil. When he was gathering sticks means that instead of seeing everything as a whole, the tree of good and evil and the tree of life as one, he was gathering parts of that tree. He wasn't seeing the whole picture, he was seeing a little part of the picture. And he was put to death simply because when you don't see what the whole picture is, basically you will not receive the light that the whole picture is going to give you. Therefore, your vessel is not ready to receive the right amount of light. And if you're concentrated on just that stick, of just that portion of the wisdom, you're considered like if you were dead even when you're alive. As some Kabbalists will say, even modern Kabbalists will say, you're basically living a life as an animal instead of living a life of a human being who has a soul. Basically, you are at the power of whatever happens, at the power of the environment that you live, at the power of your surroundings, and you're not protected by life, by the light. So you're considered dead in that sense. If you connect to Shabbat, which Shabbat is a completion, meaning the male and the female aspects of spirituality are together, and the tree is together, not broken apart into branches, sticks, or anything like that, then you are considered dead. If you connect yourself with the tree of life, you are considered life. Now, gathering sticks, a stick is basically a dry part of a tree. It's a dead part of the tree. So this is a person that in Shabbat, instead of making corrections, already making the corrections of the weekdays, this person was still doing corrections in Shabbat. And there's a law in Shabbat that you're not supposed to separate certain things, like I mentioned before, and that law has a Kabbalistic meaning. Gathering sticks is basically you worry for yourself. You worry for what's gonna happen to you physically, if you're gonna be cold, if you're gonna be hot, and things like that, instead of worrying about the spiritual part of your being and all that. And the stick is dead, but in Kabbalah we say that the stick wants to return to be part of that tree and to be once again fresh and nourished by the tree, and that's basically what we need to think about. That we cannot be separating something from the tree of life. We have to make sure that we are using the tree of life, not just part of the tree of life, but the whole tree of life. Okay, so also and this is something for you, and I'm gonna leave you with this, that you can do some research about this. Talking about sticks, there are two names for the tribe of Israel. One is Shevatim and the other one is Matot. A Shevet is a branch and Mateh is a stick or a staff. So a Shevet, which is a branch, it's connected to the tree, it's alive. The Mateh is actually uprooted from the tree, is considered dead. So this man, basically, if you really look at it symbolically, he was not connected to the tree of life, which is the Bnei Israel. This person was basically not doing what everybody else was doing as one, so he was considered dead. So he died, he was put to death. And there's symbolism in the Torah about the difference between put to death, out of the camp, and all this stuff that might sound like harsh, but it symbolically in Kabbalah has something to do with light entering or leaving the vessel. and we will cover that, in other parshas as we study this. So I'll leave you with that, and I hope that you have enjoyed and that you learned something according, something from the Ramchal. I chose to give this lesson on the parsha using the Ramchal because it was very simple, and the other ones that I saw, they were very complicated for people that are beginners or are just not, into too much symbolism and all that. So I hope you have enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next study of the parsha. And shalom, Leitraut.